So in today's web dev tip, we're going to focus on a bit of error handling when we're actually trying to create the short URL. So if there is a problem with the network request, if something goes wrong or it gets interrupted, then we want to let the user know so they don't just keep hitting this create rickroll button. And especially if there's a permanent problem there, that won't do us any favors on our backend service. So this is going to be really simple. We'll just reuse the same element where we're putting the URL result. And we've got that nice border and background already in place. And we'll adjust a bit of the CSS as well, but we just want to display a different message to the user to let them know something went wrong. And chances are it won't be anything meaningful in the error message that they can do anything about, so we'll just let them know that there is a problem and someone should be looking into it. So within our promise chain for the fetch call, at the moment we're just logging out any errors to the console, and we probably still will do that as well. So let's just open up an anonymous function inside of here, and we'll still say console error with the error response from the fetch API. That might just be handy for us while we're debugging if there's any errors. But what we are going to do is update the URL result text content in the same way we do with the URL that's retrieved for us. But we're just going to hard code a message into here. So we'll just say something went wrong. Please try again later. And of course, we'll need to remove that hidden class from the URL result DOM element, because otherwise no one will ever see that message. And what I'm also going to do as well is I'm going to add a new class to that element, and I'll just call that class error. So what happens now if there is an error in the promise chain? We'll log it out to the console still, but we'll actually update the element on the page with that text content, make it visible, and also add another class of error. So I'm just going to put some styling in for that error class in our CSS. We're in the nested result class at the moment, where we've got the hidden class that we added on yesterday, and also not result, so we want error. And I'm just going to change the border color. And I'm going to use a red color here, but we'll set that up in a variable as well. So up here where we had our white variable, we'll set a red color, and let's just choose something a little bit less bright than the standard full red color. Just make it a little bit darker there maybe, and we'll save that. And also what I'll do is I'll make the text color as red as well. So we'll just get a bit of updated styling just to distinguish between a successful request and also the error if it occurs. So at the moment, we're not going to get any errors because we know the API is up and running and it's working okay. So to simulate a problem, what we can do in our network tab, because we want to make the fetch request fail, if we go over to here, let's close this console down. We can right click on the request to the URL here, that short URL that's given us that response back from the API, and we'll just say block the request domain. So we're going to block any requests to the API, so that should trigger an error for us in the console. So if we just try that again and click on create rickroll, you can see we've got the error message on the page, and we've also got the console error as well if we need to track down what the problem is. But as you can see, we're just displaying a generic error message to the user because they're not going to be able to do anything about that. We could maybe go a bit further and say if it's a network failure, then we could let them know that they're offline, for example. But I think this simple approach should be sufficient for our project to let anyone know if there is a problem generating the URL. So there you go, we've got some error handling in there as well now, so we can create a successful URL and we can also display an error to the user. The only thing we need to take a look at is when the user has had an error and then they have a successful request, you can see the red styling is still persisting even though it's successful. So what we can do in the main.ts file is we'll make sure that when we get a successful request, we remove the hidden class, but also we make sure that we remove any error classes that were there previously. So let's just try and recreate that again. So create rickroll, we've got our error's gone away, we create a new one, and we're back to the white plain styling for a successful request. So there you go, that's our error handling sorted. We now need to have a look at how we can copy the URL to the user's clipboard and let them know that that's successful, because otherwise they're going to have to copy and paste it themselves. But that's it for this tutorial. Make sure you stay tuned for more web dev tips.